Terrific. Terrific.
Yeah, yeah. Good, good. Super excited to hear you,
Thank you, Prabhu.
Prabhu. And yeah, I'll just kind of log off right now. I just want to make sure I say hello to you. That's it.
Thank you so
Haribo.
much. We'll
Take care,
definitely
sir.
catch up soon.
Same here, Prabhu.
Very well.
Thank you, Haribo.
Hare Krishna.
Hare
Hare
Krishna.
Krishna Prabhu. Hare
Thank you,
Krishna.
everyone, for joining.
Yeah, thank you. Hare Krishna Prabhu. I'm your host today. My name is Gopal Govindas, and
Hare
welcome to
Krishna.
this Kana Bergen.
Hare
And
Krishna.
we are very happy to have you. Give us a few minutes while the devotees are joining.
Yes, bro.
Um, I heard some of your conversations with Vinod Seva Prabhu, so that's so nice to
Yes.
hear that. Um, Give us 1 or 2 more minutes.
No worries at all, bro.
So we are almost at the time. Maybe we can start. People who
Yes,
are
bro.
joining, they can continue joining, and
We can wait
once,
2 moments, bro.
yeah, okay.
Is everyone here from New Jersey?
Yeah, pretty much. Well, this is a Wednesday Sangha, so it's online. So there are
Yes.
certain devotees, they join from far remote places too.
Great.
Sometimes people join from India as well,
Oh, great.
people from Texas and Ohio and all over the place people
Wonderful.
join.
Wonderful.
So it all depends. So, but big majority is New Jersey. We are in the northern part. I heard that
Yes.
you are familiar with this place,
Oh,
so
yes.
um,
Left, right, and center, bro. I spent many years in New Jersey.
yeah. We have a little center. We run through the church, and it's in Paramus. So
Yeah, I was trying to find some photos of your temple online. I saw the inside, but I couldn't see any outside photos. So you actually bought out a church there, Prabhu?
now we rent the property, and then
Rent.
we do the whole program, the Sunday services as well as Sunday
Yes.
school and feast, everything. We're lucky that this facility is best.
Terrific.
We have
Terrific.
window facilities available to us.
Terrific.
Yeah.
We look forward to visiting soon, Prabhu. We're probably going to be um, visiting for Christmas break, so we'll try to stop by.
Of course, yeah. Of course, yeah. Please, let's stay in touch and then you can
Yes, bro.
easily connect. We'll be very happy to have you here.
Thank you.
Okay.
Yeah, we can start.
Okay.
Wonderful. And if I need to share, do I have sharing capabilities,
Yes,
Prabhu?
Prabhu.
Okay, great. Great.
Okay.
Hare
So, Prabhu,
Krishna.
I'll start with your introduction for the benefit of all the audience,
Thank you.
and then you can take over from there. So, welcome to the ISKCON of Bergen. Welcome to the Wednesday Sangha. The program the community has been conducting for more than 5 years, even before the COVID time. We have been conducting this program and has been benefiting a lot of people near and dear and far and reach. Today we have special speaker, His Grace Premavatar Prabhu, and a short introduction about him. He's an executive recruiter by trade and based in the Raleigh, North Carolina area. He and his wife, they have 2 daughters. He brings 3 decades of deep study and practices of the principles of the Bhagavad Gita. He launched courses and workshops, conducted classes, and mentored one-on-one how to apply these principles to our complex modern lives. His passion is the nurture spiritual maturity. His passion is to nurture spiritual maturity personal leadership, emotional intelligence, and help people overcome internal and interpersonal obstacles. What a wonderful skills. He has a little website as well called
Atma
it
Venture.
Atma Venture.
Yeah.
Atma means soul. Atmaventure.com. So we'll post that on the group. Those who want, you can visit that. And with that, I stop myself. All yours, Prabhu.
Thank you so much, Hare Krishna. So grateful to be here, and thank you for the opportunity. Special thanks to Kalindi Priya Mataji for introducing me to this wonderful group. I will start out with a quick invocation prayer. Om Namo Bhagavate Vasudevaya. Om Namo Bhagavate Vasudevaya. Om Namo Bhagavate Vasudevaya. Nashtaprayeshu Bhadreshu Nityam Bhagavata Sevaya. Bhagavati Uttam Shloke Bhaktir Bhavati Naishtaki. Haribol, I will now share my screen here. Let's see. Hope I get this. Can everyone see my slides? Yes, we're good to go.
Yeah, we can see that.
Great, bro. Great. So, our topic for the day, and a small disclaimer, speaking of parenting, my wife has taken my daughter for her kata class. I'm managing a daughter while I'm giving this class. If for any reason some emergency happens or urgency happens, I apologize in advance if I have to tend to my daughter's needs, but we should be okay. Um, so this is a topic that is very important to me, something that weighs on me so much and has for so many years. I thought I'd try to bring it to bear for all of us to share. A few other points I wanted to make is it's hard sometimes with Zoom and video to be interactive, but I really encourage anyone who has questions as I'm going through it. If you have an example or two you wanted to share, please just jump in. You're more than welcome. I would much prefer, I would love to do this in person so we can facilitate that type of back and forth dialogue more easily. And so to whatever degree you wish, please jump in with any thoughts or examples or whatnot. I'm not going to use too many examples. I have many examples just to protect the privacy of so many parents I've engaged with over the years. But I will try to bring as many examples in general form as possible. As we go through this, you may come up with 1,000 examples of your own that come to mind. So hopefully that's the case. And hopefully it becomes beneficial to you. This will be a high level kind of overview on this theme. You'll find that as we go through some of these points in this presentation, that one of those points could be a seminar in and of itself. So this is going to be more high level cursory. And so this is, please take it as such. But yeah, definitely jump in as and where needed. Again, the topic or theme for the day is this idea of good versus perfect. What the Gita teaches us about managing guilt as parents. And a little bit of a sneak preview into some of the big ticket themes we're going to cover in this presentation will be understanding parenting as war. You may or may not like that analogy. I love it because I see it as a battle on so many different fronts. Guilt triggers. What elements in our environment can trigger guilt, can allow it to manifest and come up to the surface. How to handle guilt. So first, by understanding what's good guilt versus bad guilt. This is where I may ask for some of your participation and your thoughts on this. And then finally striking the balance and understanding guilt's place in our life and how we have to manage it. This is a very important theme. It's something that I feel we don't talk enough about. not just amongst ourselves as devotees, but as a society, and especially as parents. A little bit introduction about myself, high level. Thank you for the nice introduction, Gopal Govind Prabhu. To add to that, I became a parent pretty much after I came into Krishna consciousness. It was in the late 90s that I got introduced, and then I got married in 2005. So I was pretty familiar and very embedded in a lot of the themes and principles and practices Srila Prabhupada has established for us. So it was very, very, very big part of my decision-making process when it came to finding an appropriate spouse in my life and life partner to share this journey with. And that's my family right there. My wife Tulsi Gopi, my two amazing daughters Tarini Radha and Nishta. So they so I became a parent after I came into Casey, and a lot of my parenting expectations, my mistakes, missteps, my successes, all of that can be very much filtered through my experience as a devotee and as a practitioner of Krishna consciousness. Um, because and it's really important to bring that out because I already had so much desire growing up to want to be a parent and to raise children. It was something that was within me when I was a teenager. Like I couldn't wait to be a father. And so it was very much a part of my psyche and consciousness. And so living a life of high morals and high strong ethics was a very natural part of my existence, and internal dialogue, as well as what my parents were able to imbibe to me. Uh, when Krishna consciousness came around, when Prabhupada came around in my life, it added a whole new layer of principles, and it took my morals and ethics to entirely new dimensions, as I'm sure all of you, or if not many of you, have already experienced in your lives. But that also added more layers of complexity and pressure in other ways, especially in my parenting journey. So that has carried with me for quite some time, and I've tried my best to process that and learn as much as I could from that. So when I was thinking about this topic, the first verse of Gita that actually came to mind that will kind of help shepherd us into this, initial theme of initial couple of themes that we'll be talking about is Bhagavad Gita 14:10. And for the sake of time, I will just share the translation as I have here with you. Sometimes the mode of goodness becomes prominent, defeating the modes of passion and ignorance. Sometimes the mode of passion defeats goodness and ignorance, and other times ignorance defeats goodness and passion. In this way, there's always competition for supremacy. Life is war. And that's what this verse tells me. Life is a battle. There's always this tug of war between the different modes of natures in our lives, and we're always at different levels of the spectrum in different ways, shapes, and forms when it comes to these powerful forces that are working at us day in and day out. So when I meditated on this verse, I realized that so much of this can be applied actually to our lives and challenges and opportunities as parents. So when I say parenting is war, what do I really mean? What I mean is you're gonna win some battles and you're gonna lose some battles. There's gonna be days when you've done everything right and you feel like you're on cloud nine, and your kids are saying you're just the best parent ever, and you feel like you've just nailed it, and you're the parenting god, right? And then there are going to be days where you can there's nothing you can do that you feel like you can do nothing right, and you wonder why you even ever got into this mess. Um and if you're a male, you're thinking, why didn't I try out brahmacharya more seriously? I had the chance. And all these crazy dialogues going on in our heads. I know they went on in mine. And so we kind of covered this whole spectrum of feelings. Um, and it's so intense. And when we're not sure where we stand, the guilt can really rise. I remember when my first daughter, her name is Tarini Radha, she's 14 now. Um, when she was born, she had colic. So she was born in New Jersey, and we spent the first year and a half of her life in New Jersey. Uh, and the first 3 years, to be honest, she had colic, so she could not sleep. It was very, very difficult for her to sleep for more than 1 or 2 hours at a stretch. So we had a very difficult initial 3 years. And I tried everything I could because the my wife bore the brunt of this challenge. Of course, I did my best to help and sometimes give her some opportunity to sleep and manage my daughter at night. But for the most part, as a mother, she felt the highest level of responsibility, so she bore the brunt of it, and the guilt I would feel for not being able to solve this problem. Right? I wanted to solve this problem so badly. Why is she having this colic? What can we change about her diet, about her, overall well-being, about her environment? Um, and so we did everything we could, and and I felt bad for my wife. I felt especially bad for my daughter, having to wake up every now and then. So it was such a challenge. And by the time age 3 came around, and I was kind of at my peak of frustration and also this feeling of guilt, all of a sudden, boom, she just changed. Her health went completely green, and she was so good for the rest of her journey. And it just out of nowhere, it just went away. Um, so it can be, and so it took its toll on me emotionally, even spiritually at times, but especially that element of guilt. So that's a very real part. It's a conversation I've had with endless number of devotees and friends, on how these things have weighed on them, especially when they're out of your control. So in war, if you're a fan of war movies, I'm a big fan of war movies. You'll see that, especially with respect to leadership in those really high stress circumstances, you have to make important decisions. And these important decisions you have to make under pressure, or you have to make them very fast, right? Very urgently. And so what happens is this kind of opens you up to making mistakes, right? If you're not used to dealing with that kind of pressure, or you're not used to responding so swiftly to that situation, or you end up choosing not necessarily the best possible path, right? So, and as a parent, when these things happen, these especially affect your kids. Oh, if we didn't feed her this, instead if we tried feeding her that, maybe it would have, made things a lot better. Now with social media, sometimes I see these videos of parents saying, just do this and that, and all their reflux issues and all their colic issues can go away. I'm like, where was that when I needed it so many years ago? And so it's really, really amazing. And so then what tends to happen is, in these pressure situations, someone may be pointing a finger at you because you made a decision to do something and it didn't work out the best. Or you're pointing the finger at yourself because you made that decision and it didn't work out the best. So if we just live in that, then we become paralyzed, right? We become pretty much paralyzed, like Sorry, I'm missing an important photo here. I apologize. We become pretty much paralyzed like Arjuna, um, and paralyzed by guilt. So Krishna then basically sees this and sees that he needs to spend the entirety of the rest of the Gita to teach him how to get out of this guilt complex, because that's pretty much what Arjuna is going through for an entire chapter and a half. And so it that reflection has fed this presentation, that distilling of Krishna's overarching themes and how to help Arjuna get out of this guilt has very much shaped this important theme for me in my life. And so it's very, very important for us to understand that that Krishna is giving Arjuna a bigger picture, and that plays a huge part in Arjuna breaking out of this paralysis. Okay, so what actually happens, right? How does guilt manifest in our life? It's a very complex question. Okay, it's a very complex question, but there are things that actually can trigger guilt in our lives, that can make us feel bad about, unduly bad about things we shouldn't be feeling as bad about, or feeling as if we have not done enough when we may have, right? So this imbalance is something that can get triggered, and there are various ways. There are various ways this can happen, and many complicated ways as well. But I'm going to distill it down into four big ways, four areas we need to be mindful of, so that we become a little bit more aware of the conversations we're having with ourselves, and be aware of those very negatively spiraling conversations that can take us to a very bad place in our journey, in our spirituality, in our relationship with our family members, etc. One of the big ones, as you could imagine, is social media. All right, you go on Instagram, you go on TikTok, and yes, there are all varieties of videos and content out there, but there's a lot of staged content, right? Where people are projecting very idyllic lives that they're living. They're raising their kids in just the right way, and how perfect their kids turned out to be, and how perfect their marriage turned out to be, and how perfect their lives turned out to be. Um, it's very, very, it's very important to understand that this, even if we initially recognize that this is just all fake, these are people just making up these narratives. If we don't separate ourselves from that enough, even the very repeated impressions of that narrative work its way into our subconscious minds, and work its way into these deeper feelings of insufficiency and deficiency, and are, especially when it comes to something as sensitive, as important, and as critical as parenthood. Okay, so we have to be very careful on what we're consuming when it comes to social media. We have to be very careful about what we're telling ourselves after we're consuming these things, because many times these things have been proven to be staged, and these scenarios are not very real. And even if they are real, they're not you. They don't those circumstances could be entirely different. And the conditions that they're dealing with could be entirely different. The challenges you may be dealing with may be much greater, that only you can understand. So under appreciating that and separating yourself from that is going to be extremely important, because social media is not going anywhere for the foreseeable future. So we have to find a way to deal with this and handle this, and we have to help our kids handle this effectively as well. Again, I'm covering a lot of topics here. Some of these topics can be entire seminars all on their own. So I apologize if I'm kind of working through some of these points quickly, But happy to, address any questions if anyone has any. And Gopal Govind Prabhu, if I'm missing any comments anyone's having, please do let me know, and I'll be
Yes, sure.
happy to address that.
Sure,
So,
yeah. Thank you.
what other triggers are there? This is probably the biggest one for many of us, is the standards and norms that are set by our family, our parents, our grandparents, our relatives, our brothers and sisters, by our temple community, our devotee community, our friends and well-wishers. Right? And these standards are not, I'm not saying they're set in any kind of negative or dominating way. It could be done in very, very subtle ways or unspoken ways. Okay. But they have an impression, right? Where we're packing our car, we're not on our way to the temple, we meet other devotees, our kids are very small and they're kind of acting up at the temple, they're not behaving as perfectly as you would want them to. We're trying to get them to, just chill out, relax, attend the arti, attend the class, participate in the kirtan, but they want to do something else. And then you turn your head to the left, and oh, there's that Mataji, and her kids are so nice, and they're always sitting so peacefully. And there's that Prabhu, and that Mataji, and their kids are just always, they love to sit in class. Why can't my kids, you know, just go through one Gita class without complaining or begging for prasadam, right? So all these scenarios are going on, and I'm laughing it off because I've gone through these 1,000 times myself. And I'm very grateful. My daughters have turned out to be wonderful human beings, and they're great, and they listen to class now. But that was not always the case, and you get into this comparison mindset, right? So these things, no one's telling you anything, but you're feeling that built-in that upward pressure, right? And then there are scenarios where people are telling you something, right? Your parents maybe, trying to pass hints about how you should raise your kids and how you shouldn't raise your kids and things like that. There could be so many scenarios in our life. So this creates, all types of feelings as well and experiences. There's this idea of a balancing act, right? We have many dharmas in our life, especially when it comes to parents. There are many, many things that many of our dharmas compete sometimes, right? We want to be wonderful parents, available to our children, but um, but we have jobs, we have professions. What if we want to grow in those professions? We want to get promoted. That means we have to work extra hours. How do we compensate that with our desire to be available to our kids and making sure that they have our attention and we're not neglecting them and all that stuff? That creates, I can't tell you how many conversations I've had about this with all types of people in my professional life. As Prabhuji mentioned, I'm an executive recruiter and I deal with professionals of all shapes and sizes, from college graduates to executives on a daily basis. And we end up having all types of personal conversations and interesting side notes that are being passed to me about their struggles with these things. So it's a very, very common and common issue and something we need to be aware of. And also just the very fact that some of us are very new to parenting and we won't know. I shared my own personal example, but I'm sure if you think about those first few years of your first child, and what you went through, and what you felt, and the ups and downs, the peaks and valleys were incredible. And you may um, feel guilty for not being the perfect parent because you're a new parent. So there's so many feelings that come from that experience as well, and just this reality that you don't know what you don't know. So that's just some of the reality of how guilt manifests for us as parents. There may be other themes. Please feel free to put in the comments other ways you have seen, it manifests in your life, or in others' lives. So that's laying out the triggers for guilt. Okay. And that takes us to this other interesting verse spoken directly by Krishna here in chapter 6. O mighty armed son of Kunti, it is undoubtedly very difficult to curb the restless mind, but it is possible by suitable practice and by detachment. So the point here is that not all guilt is bad, and not all guilt is good, right? Just like almost many other experiences and emotions, internal experiences and emotions, it's really a question of balance. Um, I would like to put it out there to the audience if you'd be open to commenting in the chat or unmuting and sharing. In what ways, let's focus on the good, right? In what ways can guilt be powerful in our lives? In what ways can it actually be beneficial and and add value, especially as devotees and practitioners of Krishna consciousness, and adding this spiritual dimension to our lives? Would anyone like to share their realizations on this or thoughts or even guesses?
You can respond in the chat or just unmute and speak up.
One of them is something Krishna mentions multiple times in the Gita. If anyone wants a hint, what can the feeling of guilt do for us? Think about what happens when you do feel it, but you're feeling actually maybe even a little grateful for it. One that comes to mind for me is that um, it makes me humble, right? That, hey, I'm not perfect and I make mistakes and I'm allowed to make mistakes, right? Um, and that um, I have to constantly remember that I'm human. I wanted to wake up early and set a good example for my kids and chant my rounds so that, you know, so that they see the ideal way of 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 living and being, um, and of managing our spiritual and balancing our spiritual journey with our material life. And so, but man, I couldn't do it. It's just such a struggle. I'm trying to, spend time with my kids, but also, make sure that I don't miss deadlines at work and I'm, exceeding expectations. There's so much pressure now that, especially in the last couple of years, so many layoffs are going on and there's increasing pressure to perform more and work longer and do and achieve more. So it's just so difficult. And I'm not, you know, and I'm not able to kind of have the sadhana I'm striving to have, I've been wanting to have, or I want to go back to. I had it once, but I lost it because of all these other things happening in my life. So we may feel honestly, a little bit guilty about that, but that could be a good thing, right? As long as we recognize um, that we're working towards it, but we're not there yet. That can be a genuinely good thing. Guilt also, it encourages us to improve, right? To get better. It reminds us that we're not there yet, right? That there is something we need to keep striving for, and hey, you're just not there yet, so keep working on it, right? Um, and of course, do it in a very healthy and balanced way. Do it in a way that you're not compromising yourself, compromising what's most important to you in your life, but keep striving, keep recognizing that there's something more to improve. That okay, I can't chant all my rounds in the morning, but maybe I can do a few, right? Get back on the wagon and do just a few and gradually work my way there. Or even if I can't do that much, but I every evening I pray to Krishna that I get the opportunity and get the schedule that would allow me to get back on track, right? So that that drive, right? It fuels that drive to constantly improve and get better. And it can also protect us against bigger mistakes, right? Maybe it's good to feel guilty, a little guilty about the smaller things that we're not getting right, and if we get that going and get that right, then the bigger things, are dealt with nicely, right? And we already built a good foundation so that and took care of some of the issues on a smaller level so that they don't pile up and they don't expand and multiply, right? And there's so many other benefits that can come from a healthy amount of guilt, right? So I'm not trying to say that it's our enemy. We should not be shooing guilt away. Actually, Prabhupada in the Gita glorifies Arjuna and his compassion, right? And guilt is a very, very critical element of that compassion for Arjuna, that I don't want to do this, I don't want to fight this, I don't want to hurt these people who I love. I feel guilty about it. And so and Prabhupada is appreciating that and his this amazing Vaishnav quality. So we need to be fully cognizant of that. But unprocessed, right? Guilt that goes unprocessed, that goes unmanaged, unmitigated, it can lead to very severe problems, right? We can't let it go out of hand, right? It can break down our confidence. It can, make us feel so dejected, right? That we're not able to move forward in a way that actually um, feels right and allows us to grow, right? It's going to hold us back. Without confidence, we can't do anything in this world, right? That utsaha is very important and very critical for every aspect of our life. Most importantly, our spiritual growth. So it can absolutely debilitate our confidence if we don't keep it in check. It can also lead to mental imbalance, right? Because we're so focused on the negativity. And I've seen this happen. I've helped people go through this. It's overwhelming, right? There's this you kind of embody this victim mindset that I'm being, I'm not doing a great job, and the world's not going to let me do a great job in this specific thing, you know. So that's going to, just spiral. So we have to be really cognizant of that. It could lead to emotional burnout because we're just meditating on that negativity so much. A lot of obsessive thinking can be there, which basically means we're so obsessed that we're losing touch with what's most important, our priorities in life, right? So it can derail us if we're not being careful in how we manage this very, very powerful emotion. And especially as parents, because when um, we're we want the best for our children, and we genuinely feel bad when we feel like we're not offering the best to our children. We feel there's something missing and we could do more, right? So the last thing we want to do is derail in any way, shape, or form our pursuit of offering the very best, spiritual and emotional and psychological standards and impact for our children. So very, very important as parents to recognize that we can neither let go of guilt, nor can we completely allow it to go haywire in our lives. So, with that being said, how exactly, do we handle this balance, right? What do we need to do to take a hold of it? The three important high level um, guidelines here, right? Number one, make good decisions. Okay. Number two, of minimize the bad ones. And number three, learn to take a step back. Krishna was expert at doing this, right? Um, when he was guiding Arjuna, in so many circumstances throughout the Gita, he was showing Arjuna a picture that Arjuna was not seeing, because he was so in that moment, instead he was having this microscope on this particular situation that seemed like the whole universe to him, this impending war with people he loves and cares for and respects dearly, right? But Krishna was reminding him in the very outset of his conversation with Arjuna in chapter 2 that you are way more than this, right? You are way more than this. So taking that step back and recognizing that, man, I'm just feeling kind of guilty for not, I think I've been a little too distant from my kids and my family, and I've just been so consumed with so many other things, so many other pressures are there. I'm dealing with health challenges for my parents, and it seems like I'm spending a lot of time on that, and work is also intense. And then I come home and I have very little time with my kids, and now kids are doing things that I'm not too sure about, and I have to get on top of and make sure that it's all in. And it's in. Am I, you know, am I planting bad seeds here? Am I doing wrong things here? You know, it can spiral. And so, and I've used this word a few times, and it's very important because this is one particular emotion that if you don't get a handle of it, this word spiral can very much manifest in your life. It can take you to dark places, especially when things are not going your way, right? You're hitting economic challenges, or you may be dealing with a layoff, or from a job that you loved, or a job that you needed. You may be dealing with other economic challenges in your family, financial challenges. You may be dealing with, as I mentioned, health challenges. So many other types of challenges may be weighing on you, sometimes all of them or many of them at once. So, not getting consumed by the moment is going to be very, very important. So, now we approach the tail end of this presentation, which is basically, okay, I got it. Guilt is good, guilt is bad. How do we balance it? And it's something that manifests for us, especially as parents, because we set high standards. We want to meet them. We want our kids to meet them. What happens when we don't? How do we deal with it? And this is where we get into the breakdown of actually, applying these principles of yoga, of bhakti yoga, karma yoga, buddhi yoga, to our very, very real lives, right? We're dealing with all types of challenges on a daily basis. Many of these things also we don't get an opportunity to share with everyone. They're so personal, or we just don't have the time to share these things, and that can also build up inside of us. So how do we manage all of this? And I'm going to go through these, but again, we can unpack each of these in so many ways, shapes, and forms. So I apologize if this is a high-level presentation, but I thought it would be important to cover the high-level theme, and we can certainly dive into other aspects of this as needed. Number one is set realistic standards. Um, this was a challenge for me personally because Prabhupada sets the highest standards, and I wanted very much to meet those high standards that Prabhupada set. I believe so many of us strive to meet those wonderfully amazing standards the Acharya set for us in our lives, right? We're reminded of these standards and these principles and this ethos that's laid out by our Acharyas. Um, but at the same time, we are then confronted with the lives that we have, right? And the material desires that we have, and the fact that we're still on this spectrum and working towards living a better Krishna conscious life and more ideal Krishna conscious life. So we need to balance those great standards with the reality that we're in, and do an audit, do a healthy audit of what am I setting myself up for here? Is this realistic? And how do I work? How do I handle it the best way possible? I want my kids to be very focused on getting good grades. It's something that's important to me. It's something that's important to my wife. We want them to be academically strong. But at the same time, we don't want that to be the all in all in their life. It has to be somehow balanced with them having a good emotional, you know, what do you call it? Emotional maturity, spiritual growth. These things are also important. How do we handle all of this in a realistic way? So these are conversations my spouse and I we have on a very, very regular basis, and these standards sometimes evolve and change over time as our children change over time. So this has to be part of our dialogue and conversation so that we know that um, we're striving for something, but it's not something that is so impossible and far from reach, right? That we're setting really, really healthy milestones for ourselves as we grow. The other element is very effective communication. And this is a theme that will make its way through these bullets. This is a theme that I may have talked about throughout this presentation, is that communicating is very, very essential, and communicating often and sharing often is very, very essential. Um, and 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 specifically communicating the value of what we're trying to strive for in our lives, you know, communicating the deeper purpose of such standards. I've spoken to so many parents, um, and it's not like I was necessarily a mentor. It was just a friend to friend conversation where there's some conveyance of struggle. Hey, I'm trying to, you know, my kids are really good kids, but I really want them to be better at, be better in school, right? They're just not focused and they don't want to, they're nice in programs, they come, they do everything nicely, but in school, they're just struggling. Or vice versa. They're so good at school, they have tons of friends, but they're not integrating so nicely in the temple community, in our Christian conscious lives. Um, how do I, and they just won't listen to anything I'm saying. They're just not following. Or they're stuck on their iPads and, cell phones all day. How do I, get them out of this? And I realized that when I asked, well, how often you're talking about this with them? Oh yeah, not too much. It's not happening enough, and we don't have the time, Prabhu. We're so busy running around, going to program, and then they have to run off to school, and they come home, they have homework and exams and quizzes, and there's just no time. So this is where a really, really, really big gap is for so many of us, and it's understandable. Our lives are overwhelming at times and busy. But if we don't communicate if we don't find ways to communicate with our children, then there's not going to be an opportunity for them to understand why we're setting this bar for them, right? And so that's going to be a very, very important part. I feel like I should just make an entire class about this point because this miscommunication or lack of communication happens on many different levels and many shapes and sizes. So, but it's very important that not only do we communicate regularly, but we communicate the deeper purpose, right? Deep where we are coming from, why we feel this is so important, and why we feel it will make a difference for you as you get older. You may not recognize it now, but this is how it will materialize as you get older, become an adult, take on more and more responsibilities in your life, right? So we need to get away from this expectation of blind following. Please just do what I say. I know best. Um, you may, you may, but they need to, especially this generation and future generations, they need more communication than ever because the world is a very busy place and there are many distractions and misdirections. The other one is recognizing just, and we covered this already, to be honest, that we're never going to be perfect, right? That idea of perfection doesn't exist. And being human, having humanity means trial and error. And Srila Prabhupada embodied this. He repeatedly shared with the devotees this particular, that the modes of nature are upon us, and they will make sure that we make mistakes. But the point here is that we need to learn from those mistakes and evolve from those mistakes. That's okay. One aspect, when I was thinking about this point, one aspect that came to mind, especially when it came to my kids and my observation of other people's kids, is that sometimes we simply don't understand them. Right? We may even be trying to communicate, but we don't. Sometimes we misunderstand them because we don't understand what their personality really is, what their genuine likes and dislikes are, what their genuine, what is their comfort zone and what is their discomfort zone. These are very important elements, and it took me a while to figure these things out for my own children, and to be able to ask thoughtful enough questions so that they can share with me openly. And because of that misunderstanding, many times we didn't set the right bar at the right time for certain things in our lives when it came to them. So this is important to recognize, that we're not going to be perfect. We're going to try. We're going to do our best. I'm going to keep inching forward. The next 2 points are directly related to karma yoga. Very powerful points about taking meaningful, thoughtful actions with the best intentions. Okay, having the right intention makes all the difference in the world. It's not the end all be all, right? You cannot say because I completely messed up this situation and now I was being overly strict with my children, and but my intentions were great and now they're completely gone off the deep end and they don't want anything to do with our KC Temple Life or blah, blah. I've heard stories like this before. um so, it was with the best of intentions, and it may be you may genuinely have had the best of intentions, but it has to be married with thoughtful actions. Okay, again, grounded in some of the themes we already talked about, being in terms of being realistic, and following the example Arjuna is setting in the Gita, and the countless examples we find in Bhagavatam. So so the right intention married with the right action, um, is going to be key to actually countering the negative spiral of guilt, and then also cultivating detachment. Right? There's there's some freedom, right? There's some freedom in knowing that, okay, I've operated with the best intentions. I've I've really tax my brain and tax my heart to take the best possible actions, and to partner with my spouse to make the best decisions for my family. And still, it didn't meet the mark, right? I've done everything I could, and it still didn't meet the mark. And 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 that's okay. We have to recognize that yes, some guilt may be there, but we should not. We have to be very conscious of how far we're allowing that guilt to consume us. Um, Maybe you're trying to help your kid have better eating habits. Their eating habits are not good. They're always eating junk, and so you decided all of a sudden that let's just start removing some of the junk from the house and start replacing it with fruits and nuts and vegetables and all these other healthy things that they're just scoffing at, they don't want, they're struggling with, and now they're resenting you even more. So if you felt this was the best possible path and other paths have already been tried and they couldn't really hit the mark, and your kids were not responding in a positive way at all, then you know you've done everything you could do. You're still acting in the best of intentions. You're making thoughtful actions, right? You're not compromising the well-being of your child at all. So it's so there's a certain amount of detachment that needs to happen so you can move on, and that creates important psychological space for us to actually make even better decisions as we learn more and more and grow more from the opportunity, from the experience. Seeing the bigger picture, we talked about this in the beginning, right? Um, this is basically, you're not the controller. I'm not the controller. Spouse is not the controller. Kids are not the controllers, though they try real hard to be sometimes. Um, you know, we're we're doing our best, and we're applying as much love as we can fathom, applying as much understanding as we can fathom, as much culture as we can fathom, and we're applying it. We're trying to communicate openly, and still things may not go the way you expect them to go. Right? You wanted your kids to go a certain direction in life, and they went another direction. You've done everything you could do, right? Um, it's okay, and recognizing that there and you never know that things that didn't expect to go wrong went wrong, but then ultimately made its way back to right. um, and I remember small thing, kind of, when I started my journey in Christian consciousness in the late 90s. My parents were not the biggest fans. They were a little afraid, and they didn't know what to make of this intensity that came out of nowhere in my life. Um, and um, they started feeling very guilty that, hey, what did we do wrong? Why is our kid becoming so extremist? Joining ISKCON, I even spent a few months in an ashram. They're just kind of freaking out, to be honest with you. And I didn't blame them at one bit. Maybe I would too. Um, but then eventually, but the powerful thing they did something very powerful. I didn't I'm still surprised they had the strength to do this. They never challenged me. They never said, "Stop. We forbid you." Those words never came from their mouth. Instead, they were patient. And despite being full of fear and at times even tears, they said, "You do exactly what you think is right for you, what you need to do." It was an extraordinary moment. And so, long story short, I went through my experience. I tried different things, and I realized that no, I actually want. I'm very serious. I want to be a parent. I want to be a husband. I want to be a father. I want to experience these things, and I want to imbibe these amazing principles that Srila Prabhupada and amazing practices that Srila Prabhupada has shared with us. I want to imbibe them in my children. I want to feel that, you know, feel that growth and maturity that they will experience. So I want that, and my parents, with their patience, they realized that wow, he's not only not gone off the deep end, he's become more serious about being a upstanding and ethical human being, and someone who's trying to live up to very high standards in his life. So it went a very long way. So you never know, you never know how things turn and and balance out. And speaking of which, finally, the art of balance. That A good parent, we always want the best for our kids, right? But how far do we push? How much do we push? How far do we challenge? How much do we pull back? These things are really, really important. These are conversations that never should stop, right? We should always be having these conversations with ourselves, amongst ourselves. So it's so important. And that's finally the biggest theme here is communicate, have open dialogue, do audit of yourself, of your thoughts, of your intentions, of what you're striving to do. Make sure you're covering all the angles before you make really big decisions in your family's life, in your children's life. Um, and if you do these things and you genuinely pray to Krishna that give me the intelligence and guidance to do the best I can with what I have and what you've given me, I promise you, he will guide you. He will absolutely. He's guided me in extraordinary ways, and I'll be eternally grateful for it. So we'll close on this verse of balance in chapter 6. There is no possibility of one's becoming a yogi, O Arjuna, if one eats too much or eats too little, sleeps too much or does not sleep enough. Thank you very much for your very kind attention. I hope I was able to share a point or two that made a positive difference in your life. This is my contact information. You're more than welcome to reach out for any feedback. If I made any mistakes, I'm very open. Please feel free to share any guidance, any reactions, or how you felt about this. I'd be very grateful. Thank you and Hare Krishna. If there are any questions, please feel free.
Thank you, Prabhuji. I'll just take a minute, maybe 30 seconds, just to introduce the community with the programs we do. And while the people are thinking about the questions, the topic you have hit is pretty, like, I'm pretty sure there will be thousands of questions, but we'll see how we go about that. Give me a second. I'll just share my screen and then just uh, talk about community programs a bit. Okay, I believe my screen is visible. Can somebody confirm? Okay.
Yes, bro, we can see it. Thank you.
Okay, all right. So our website is conofbergen.org. That's where we have all the programs listed. We operate in New Jersey, Paramus area. There's a physical. These are our nice, beautiful deities, Shri Radha Sham Sundar and Shri Garnatai. And we conduct many festivals. Recently, we hosted the Thanksgiving dinner with more than 8 cuisines and celebrated Gita Jayanti. And we conduct a Sunday program every Sunday. So at the facility, where is that? At Paramis facility. And this Wednesday program, Wednesday Sangha, online Sangha has been going on for a while. We also have the Bhakti Bridge programs on Fridays. Those who wants to join these programs and around in this local community, click on this join us and we'll have you connected with one of the Bhakti Bridge programs around in the area. Then we also read Bhagavad Gita every day, 12 to 12:15 midday on the weekdays. It's called chapter a day. We've been doing it for a while. There's a morning japa session, 6 a.m. to 8 a.m. on the same Zoom. More than happy to join there, and we are very happy to see you all there. It's a nice way of getting the devotee association and japa together. All the calendar events like Ekadasi, Paran time, and the festivals are listed on our ISKCON calendar, embedded on the website. It's a nice place to be in the know about it. All the programs are listed here, and we have a YouTube and the Facebook channel where we keep posting all our details as well. With that, I'll go back to the where is that gone? Um, I'll go back to the question answers now. Um, I'm sure there'll be some questions, and if you raise the hand, then I know anybody has any question. And you can also post the question on the chat room. I can read it to the Prabhuji if you want to. And okay, all right. Vaman Seva Prabhu, you have a question, so please proceed.
Hey, Hare Krishna, Prabhu. Thank you so much. Wonderful class. It's not an easy subject, we get to hear about verses and everything and Bhagavad Gita, Srimad Bhagavatam, but connecting with your children, they are pretty much your 100% asset, literally, right, in the material world. So thank you. We really enjoyed your lecture. Um, on the communication, I just wanted to share a small habit of mine. I have two kids. One is, as I said, close to 30, and the other is 23. I made it a point from a time when they've been 12, or at least after middle school, as they enter the high school, I try to go one on one with them for lunches or dinners alone. And that has helped me to kind of make them my best friends. So I really appreciate all your points. It really kind of, make me understand that the fact that it's so important. So yeah, thank you, and I hope to hear more from you again. I just saw your website too, and would love to connect and learn more from you. Thank you again. Yeah,
Thank
Hare
you.
Krishna.
That's a great point. Something I'm going to do now. I really like that. My kids are just 13 and 8. Oh, sorry. Yeah, 14 and 10. But it's I wish they were 13 and 8. They're 14 and 10, growing very fast, but I anticipate getting to that point where both my wife and I will have to have special private time with them, just connect with them. On their own terms, and but that's something I've heard others do, and they love doing it because their guard is down, right? And number one, the guard is down. Number two is ideally it's outside the home if possible. So because the home environment brings its own energy, right? You may feel that, right, Peru?
And distraction too. We keep our phones
Yes,
away. I said, let's
yes,
let's talk as friends, as buddies. But they
yes.
have to be at that age. And I always call them Nariyal. I don't know whether you understand what Nariyal means. Is our kids are brown from out, but white from in, to a point.
Yeah. Yeah.
And you'll be surprised, my
Yeah.
elder one got married to a lovely Gujarati boy, but they
Yes.
dated, and she's
Yes.
has a high position in Boston Consulting Group. She's very
Yes.
busy, but even now, twice a month we try to meet in New York City in the evening.
Mm,
Just meet me alone. What's happening
yes.
with your life, and you'll be surprised. And I'm sharing a lot happening in my life rather
Yes.
than wanting to know.
Yes.
So someone
Yes.
to talk to, right? We are pretty
Yes.
lonely to a point beyond a point.
Yes.
Sunday we all meet in the temple, but Monday to Friday we are fighting with the world. But then we
Yep.
are short of friends, I guess.
Yep. Yep. Prabhu,
Thank
this
you.
is so important. It takes a lot of maturity to do this because, um, you know, for so many years, for several decades, we're assuming this authority figure, right, for our children. And it requires a lot of humility to say that th they're adults now. They're like me now, right? And they're trying to manage this crazy world and all these responsibilities. And so actually they're a lot like me now, and they're a lot like what I was when I was growing up and I was an adult. And so they're going to open up channels of communication that way that didn't exist before for them. So this is so powerful. I
And
really,
I'll confide, I have lined up telling them sorry many times as an adult.
yes, yes,
And you'll be surprised, it could be yesterday also, but I'm not
yes,
getting into that
yes,
because I
yes,
went head on with my young, adult son. where he felt otherwise and I felt otherwise, and
Yes.
it was, yeah, and we lived together because now his job is remote, and I
Yes.
told him that don't go and stay and spend more
Yes.
than you need to if you
Yes.
can, kind of, look after DTs too. We have beautiful DTs. So thank you.
Amazing.
And
Amazing.
they're not devotees per se, but
Yes,
they are very Krishna conscious. So that
for sure.
also is a challenge for me and my wife. But I think we're doing how much we can, right?
We all have our own journey, Prabhu. Each and
Correct, correct,
every Atma has its own journey. We have to
correct,
be the best shepherds we can be to the best
correct.
of our ability. There's only so much we can control. And just like there's only so much my parents could control about me, right?
True.
So there's, they recognize that. And the fact that you do too says a lot. So yes,
No, no. Thank you again, Prabhu. Hare
thank you.
Krishna. Just two points. Thank you. Hare
Thank
Krishna.
you so much. Hare Krishna.
Thank you, Prabhuji. Um, if anybody has any other question, please let me know. In the meantime, I'll ask some question slightly different, but on the topic.
Yes, Prabhu.
Little twist. The guilt. There are two
Yeah.
angles of the guilt: a guilt imposed and the guilt from inside.
Hmm.
I would like to request your opinion about
Do you have another 2 hours, Prabhu? It's like
that.
that's a big one. Um, I'll be honest with you, Prabhu. I purposely avoided that topic because it's such a big one. Um, and it's its own seminar because um at least as an Indian, I can say for myself, and I apologize if I'm generalizing and if it does not apply to you, I totally understand. But as an Indian and someone who connects with many other Indians, raised in Indian culture, um, and with Indian parents and Indian relatives, and um, we're very fond of guilt actually, and it makes its way, sometimes direct ways, sometimes indirect ways, but it makes its way into our lives, and it's expected, in my opinion. It's expected because anytime you have a society or culture that strives to live to standards of sattva or higher, it's going to be a natural byproduct, right? There's going to be pressure from society for you to you know, behave a certain way, act a certain way, conduct yourself in society in a certain way. It's going to come. Even in lower lower standards, like you just open Facebook, TikTok, Instagram, you'll find so many videos of people who don't strive to live to our standards in some ways, and they still have, they impose their will on others. Um, so it's something that again, that we're focusing on the external guilt right now. It's something that can be very healthy and can be processed in a way that helps you grow. And it could be something that can completely destroy you and rip you apart. I've seen both extremes. So we have to be, the only way to manage it is to manage yourself first. So you won't be able to, and from my perspective, handle, um, properly handle and process the guilt that's manifesting from the world out there, right? From someone telling you how you should be raising your children, for instance, right? Or um, um, how are you allowing your kids to watch iPad for 2 hours? I only allow 30 minutes. And that these are like very passive aggressive comments that sometimes come. Um, Not with any intention of um, of putting you down, but that's what came to mind and they shared it. And now all of a sudden you're like, wow, am I a bad parent? Right? Am I a bad father for raising my voice to my son when he wanted to go out and I didn't allow him, but maybe he's old enough, but still the world out there makes me too nervous. you know. So, but now my son is, challenging me, making me feel guilty about it, right? So that guilt can come from so many directions. That external guilt is, I can't say we you should live a life devoid, ignoring all of it, because you shouldn't. We need a certain amount of it to keep ourselves in check. Because if we don't, then the ego has, enough, um, enough hay to make fire out of. So we can't leave too much out there. Um, and there's a lot more to be said, but that's I'll kind of leave it at that for now. The internal guilt is something that is very challenging and definitely needs to be managed, um, because that's, if it's not if it's not communicated, if it's not externalized, if it's not, you know, and you have to find some way to get it out. Like you have to, um, because those voices inside of us, we don't know who's actually turning up the volume in our heads and saying, Gopal, that was pathetic. How dare you? 3 days in a row, Miss Mangalarti, how, you're just horrible. You're terrible. You know, this could be the voice, and we're feeling like this is our friend, right? We may be thinking, oh, no, no, I need this. I need to be kicked in the pants so that I get back on track. What your kids are watching, why don't you, set a better standard, live a better example for them. And so these voices are there. The tone of those voices matter, Prabhu, actually. If the way we're speaking to ourselves is very, very important, because that voice may not be your own. It may be a different kind of voice, speaking to you, that may actually be looking to sabotage you. We like, Krishna likes to call that voice Maya. But she's extremely clever, and she can take on many different voices within us. This is an entirely different theme that we can talk about in the future, but we we have to battle these voices, and we have to recognize which is the voice that actually, yes, it's still humbling me, but not tearing me down, right? We need to be humbled without being torn to pieces. And that's really, really difficult, for many, many. I've seen this, in India, and especially in Indian culture and Asian culture, um, not just Indians, but Asians overall. We strive to meet certain standards, that have been come internalized, right? My parents have constantly told me I need to be the top. I need to be earning this much money. I need to be this certain type of status in my profession. Or if they have not told me, they keep talking about it all the time. And so over time, you've internalized it. You've made it your voice. Now that's created all types of pressure in your life. And I've seen people completely break mentally from that pressure. Indians. It's very important, that we recognize where this pressure is coming from, where it's originating from. And if you don't feel like you are mature enough to handle it, you absolutely, absolutely, in my opinion, need to get mature guidance. Um, Sometimes that can come from devotees who understand these things. Other times you may need, it's very healthy to go see a counselor, to see psychiatrist, psychologist. If we can't get a handle of these voices, they're getting out of control. They're consuming our lives. They're going back into that negative spiral. So we have to be very cognizant of the symptoms. Like what happens when we hear the voice? How does our body react? How do I start to feel? What happens, minutes, hours, days, weeks after I'm hearing these things, whether it's coming from outside or whether it's coming from myself. We have to observe very carefully what's going on to know that, okay, I'm able to handle this, or actually I need more, serious guidance from others. So I would say the first step is diagnosis, a good, clear audit of where it's coming from. Why do you think it's there? And then you'll know if it's a genuinely good voice that's meant to actually help you and push you harder versus one that will, make you buckle under the pressure. I'm sorry for the long-winded answer, Prabhu. Hopefully that gives some perspective.
Yeah, that's sure. Certainly, it's very it's good to hear these opinions, especially been studying and mentoring many people on these topics. And it's a vast topic, obviously, and deals with a very difficult area of life.
Yes.
Um, Anybody else has any question? Okay. Um, am I missing anybody? Okay. Yeah, I think I don't see any questions really on the forum here, but
I think
let's
Partha
just
Prabhu has one question here. Partha Prabhu shared one question. I'm not sure if he's still on the call, but where should we stand vis-a-vis Chanakya Pandit's Dasa Varshani Tadayat, keeping them under strict discipline from age 6 to 15? Um, Again, a very, very involved question. Happy to answer it offline at a very high level. We need to define strict and disciplined, and that will change from generation to generation, from time period to time period. Um, I believe in that statement greatly. There has to be some level of discipline and guidance, strong guidance for our children. How that materializes, right? How we actually implement that is the real question here, right? What does that look like today in 2025 versus 1925 versus 1825, right? So there may be some difference, and we can please feel free to reach out to me. I'm happy to elaborate on that more. I know we're approaching 10 o'clock here, and I don't want to take up too much more time of everyone's busy schedule. So grateful to everyone, and thank you so much, Gopal Govind Prabhu, for allowing me to share and uh, and happy to stay in touch.
thank you, Prabhu. So once again, I would like to um, thank you for giving time on this very touching topic. Not many people speak about such topics. Worth discussion, especially when you touch the Bhagavad Gita and teachings of our acharyas correlate with what we are dealing with in our life. And you nicely put across the some of the references from the Bhagavad Gita. And I'm pretty sure that the we all go through with these different topics, and many of us must be benefited, and there'll be recording of this session available on the YouTube channel. You can go through with that, and if you have any questions, you can also connect with Prabhuji. What was the website, Prabhu? Just mention it
Yes,
again.
Prabhu, I will just put it in the chat here.
Yeah,
I'll put my email address as well if anyone wants to contact me and my phone number.
yeah. So anybody wants to connect with Prabhuji, please feel free to take a reference of these things. There's no harm in, like, what I know is, like, you all everybody needs a second person to discuss, and these things definitely help a lot. And especially when you discuss with a devotee, there's nothing can go wrong. And we are very happy to have you here, Prabhuji, today, and we wish you a wonderful journey in these nice topics, discussion with the community around, and would like to have you again when you visit here.
Thank you so
And
much, Prabhu.
yeah,
Prabhuji, today is Gopal Govind Prabhu's birthday. You need to bless
Hari
him.
Bol, Hare Krishna. Happy birthday, Prabhu.
thank you so much, Prabhuji.
Hare
Amazing.
Krishna. Happy birthday, Prabhuji.
Mm. All right, wonderful. Thank you. Hare Krishna.
Hare Krishna.
Thank you.
Thank you.
So with that, we'll conclude the session today, and I'm so grateful of all the devotees who gave us this time, precious time on the weekday, And we like to pray that Prabhupada and Krishna's mercy for all of us continue our journey nicely. And if any mistakes, please forgive us. Thank you, everyone.
Hare
Have a
Krishna.
wonderful day.
Thank you.
Krishna. Hari
Thank you,
Hari.
Prabhu. Hare Bol.
Hare Krishna.
Hare Krishna.
Hare
Thank
Bol.
you.
Hare Krishna.
Hari.
Hare Bol. Hare Bol.